Giselle wants more information, more detail on the 2010 vintage.
The 2010 vintage was considered perfect, as was '09.
$15, Ben.
'09 was a vibrant, rich, and we're going to taste an '09 next. Vibrant, rich, full. The vintage, there's a through line through the '09 vintage that it's like a laser point that you always pinpoint. 10 is a perfect vintage without that laser line. Some of the wines taste a little softer, depending on the winemaker, but again, all what's the word I want? Everything was there for a perfect vintage for a winemaker to make great wine. It just happened that it turned out to be a little softer than the '09 was. And '09 is exceptional. It just really sings. If you can find the '09s, buy them, put them away, and hold them.
He sounds so enthusiastic. You sound enthusiastic about that.
The '09s are perfect. The 10s, buy them, hold them, drink them within 20 years.
Is there any, within the appellation, within the 4 parts of the appellation, is there any significant difference vintage to vintage? Is part of it better suited to a cooler, drier vintage? Or?
There are huge microclimate differences within Ribera del Duero. Because you have this structure where you have the top mesas, and you have a few vineyards up at the very top, which are, and you have to have windbreaks planted there, and then you drop like a cliff, and you drop down to the next level, and then you have to drop down to the riverbed. Within that, you will find odd little microclimates. Vega Thethilia, for instance, has a completely different climate than almost everybody else every vintage. 2001 was considered a great vintage for most of Ribera. 2001, they did not release an Unico because they felt it wasn't up to scratch, because their particular growing area didn't produce what everybody else thought they were producing. And you will find that from, it's not necessarily region to region or area to area, it's vineyard to vineyard.
I neglected to share this wine.
Oops, here they come. Here they come, taking our wine. Yes, nice try.
Yes, yes. So we had Snooth is not selling wine, so we have no special offer on this wine. And Susanna asked a question, is this wine fruitier than the typical Ribera?
Not for a Roble or an entry level in this style. This is going for that New World big fruit style. And this is fairly typical. It has a little more depth, I think, than some of them do. But no, I don't think it's fruitier than a lot at the Roble Holden level.
Has this style changed over the past 5 to 7 years?
Have the wines over the last 20 years?
20 years. They become fresher?
Yes, fresher and bigger. They aimed for that California style because they thought that's what was going to sell. Now they're pulling back and becoming more unique to themselves.
And how does that express itself? Well, what would, if somebody asks you what is a unique expression, what is unique about this level of Ribera?
They're not pushing the ripening to the very last moment. Sometimes they're picking a little greener. They're giving it a little more of the old school Ribera. They're letting the Ribera identity come back in as opposed to trying to be international.
So is that a little bit more?
Which is a very small step. We're talking hairs here. It's not a lot of difference that they have to work on, but there is.
It's a big difference in expression, though.
Big difference in expression and in attitude towards the wine.
So the wines are. I mean, for me, this is a little less plump than the wines might have been in the recent past, which I guess is pulling back a little bit. And it shows
part
a
of that's
structure.
The vintage. It's not as hot as '08 and not as hot as '06.
That could very well be it. That could be that.
And
that
we've
explains
had a lot of
perfectly.
8s and 6s lately. That's what we just finished, and we're moving into 9s and 10s. And 8 and 6 were big, huge, plummy. I mean, there was a lot of fruit and a lot of cooked fruit going into those because of the vintage.
And for me, the structure at this level was less well defined in those.
Yes, absolutely, because you couldn't get it in those vintages. It just wasn't possible. When you had, like with '08, when you had that huge burst of heat right at the end, just before harvest, that just slammed the grapes, and there was nothing they could do. I mean, you were talking about days, and suddenly your whole harvest has changed its character.
And it's right at the end, so it's not like canopy management's going to help you, or nothing's going to help you.
There's nothing you can do except get in there and pick, and there's only so many people who can pick it at any one time.